You're lying in bed. The lights are off. Sleep should be coming. But instead, your mind starts directing a movie where you're the main character. A movie so vivid it almost feels real, even though it may never happen. Maybe you're standing in front of a crowd, delivering a speech that leaves everyone speechless. Maybe you're finally saying the words you wish you'd said years ago to someone who's been living rent-free in your mind. Or maybe you've just discovered a hidden talent that changes everything, while everyone who ever doubted you watches in disbelief. You replay the scene again and again, changing a single sentence, a different reaction, one tiny detail until it finally feels perfect. And somewhere along the way, you fall asleep. If this sounds familiar, you're far from alone. Psychologists often describe this as creating elaborate internal narratives, rich mental worlds that feel surprisingly real. And what's happening in those quiet moments before sleep goes much deeper than simple daydreaming. Many psychologists have noticed that these nighttime stories often revolve around two themes: unresolved emotional moments or imagined moments of recognition, closure, and acceptance. That second one is especially interesting. When you replay a conversation where you finally say the perfect thing, you're not simply indulging in fantasy. Your brain may be trying to make sense of emotions that never found a satisfying ending during the day. The period just before sleep, known as hypnagogia, is a unique transition where logical thinking gradually quiets down while emotional processing remains active. During that window, the feelings you pushed aside throughout the day often begin to resurface. The argument you let go, the appreciation you never received, or the version of yourself that felt a little braver, a little more confident, and a little less afraid to take up space. What's fascinating is that these scenes are rarely random. They're specific, emotionally detailed, and often follow a deep sense of narrative justice. The human brain naturally organizes experiences into stories. Every memory quietly searches for meaning, and every unresolved moment searches for an ending. Real life rarely offers perfect closure. Conversations end awkwardly, misunderstandings remain unresolved, and important feelings often go unspoken. But your mind keeps those unfinished chapters open. The imagination before sleep becomes the place where those stories are gently rewritten. Not to escape reality, but to preserve your sense of identity and rehearse the person you're slowly becoming. Yale psychologist Jerome Singer, who spent decades studying daydreaming and imagination, suggested that people who engage in positive, constructive imagination often show greater creativity and emotional flexibility. These vivid inner stories aren't necessarily signs that someone struggles with reality. In many cases, they reflect a rich inner life and a remarkable ability to process emotions in meaningful ways. Of course, not every nighttime story has a happy ending. Sometimes you imagine arguments that go badly, conversations you're afraid to have, or situations where everything falls apart. Other times they're quieter, filled with grief, longing, or conversations with people you've lost or relationships that never became what you hoped. Those scenes carry a different emotional weight, but they're just as important. Research on sleep suggests that emotional memories are processed heavily during REM sleep, and the moments leading up to sleep may help prepare the mind for that emotional work. What feels like being stuck can sometimes be part of the process of slowly moving forward. There's another side to this that people rarely talk about. For some individuals, especially those whose emotions weren't always acknowledged growing up, the inner world becomes a place where unspoken feelings finally find a voice. If you couldn't fully express yourself during the day, your imagination quietly continued the conversation at night. Over time, that private world became incredibly detailed, not because you wanted to escape life, but because it gave your emotions somewhere safe to exist. And if we're being honest, those imagined scenes are often surprisingly cinematic. You walk into a room and everyone's attention shifts. You reveal something that changes how people see you. The person who underestimated you suddenly understands who you really are. You've written the dialogue, directed the scene, and created a version of yourself who's effortlessly confident. The question underneath all of this is simple. Why can't real life feel a little more like that? Perhaps because we're so busy managing how we appear to others that the most authentic version of ourselves only emerges when nobody's watching. That version of you isn't necessarily fictional. It may simply reflect qualities you've struggled to express in everyday life. So what do you do with that realization? Maybe those imagined scenes aren't trying to pull you away from reality. Maybe they're quietly pointing toward the life you wish felt possible. Closing the gap between your inner world and your real one doesn't happen overnight. It happens through small, imperfect moments of honesty, speaking up when it's uncomfortable, taking opportunities that scare you, allowing yourself to be seen without editing every word. Reality will always be messier than imagination, but it's also the only place where change can actually happen. The stories you replay before sleep aren't something to be embarrassed about. They can become a map, revealing what you truly value, what you've been missing, and who you're slowly trying to become. Tonight, when the lights go out and the story begins again, don't just watch it. Pay attention to what it's trying to tell you. Beneath every imagined conversation, every impossible victory, and every perfect ending, there's usually a real desire waiting to be understood. And sometimes, understanding that desire is the first step toward making a small part of it real.